Japanese aggression at a Beijing museum dedicated to the heroes of the war. Big shakeup. Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party unveils its new executive lineup ahead of Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's cabinet reshuffle later today. For the EU's incoming foreign affairs and security policy chief calls for the strongest possible response to Russia's alleged incursions into Ukraine. And several poultry farms in northeast China's city of Harbin are sealed off after thousands of geese died from H5N6 bird flu virus outbreak. Good afternoon from Beijing. I'm Li Chu, and thank you so much for joining us. On Wednesday morning, a large-scale ceremony was held at the Museum of War of Chinese People's Resistance Against Japanese Aggression. 1,500 people, including China's top leadership, attended the memorial service to mark the 69th anniversary of the country's victory over Japan. CCTV's Zaiyan has our top story.
China is marking the 69th anniversary of its victory in the war of resistance against Japanese aggression. President Xi Jinping and other state leaders, veterans, military personnel, and youth representatives were present at the memorial service. A 14-gun salute was fired to symbolize the 14 years of fighting against the Japanese invaders. Thousands of balloons were released in memory of the tens of millions of Chinese, those soldiers and civilians that were lost during the war. The War of Resistance began in 1937 when Japan launched a full-scale invasion after the July 7th incident, also known as the Lugo Bridge incident. The Victory Day is celebrated across the world every year in late August and early September to mark Japan's official surrender. Since returning to office in late 2012, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has conducted a series of provocative moves, including visiting the Yasukuni Shrine and referring to wartime criminals as martyrs, all of which has led to questioning Japan's remorse for its wartime aggression. More than a year and a half since taking office, Abe hasn't been able to hold bilateral talks with either China or South Korea. Earlier this year, China's top legislature has ratified September the 3rd as the National Memorial Day. This has showed the determination that the country will never forget the wartime aggression, and also it will better remember those that have contributed to the development of the modern China. Ai Yang, CCTV, Beijing.
And now here's a look at how September 3rd came to be formalized as Victory Day in the Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression. On August 15, 1945, Japanese Emperor Hirohito gave a recorded radio address to which he announced his country's surrender. The surrender ceremony was held on September 2nd aboard the American battleship, the USS Missouri. And officials from the Japanese government signed the Japanese Instrument of Surrender, thereby bringing the fighting in World War II to an end. And on February 27 this year, China's top legislature passed a draft decision to formalize September 3rd as the Victory Day. The decision was made at the bi-monthly session of Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, and through legislative procedures, the day aims to reflect the will of the Chinese people and also acts as a reminder of the need to remember history. Well, China officially marks the victory of the War of Resistance against Japanese aggression and the Second World War on September 3rd. The war on the Chinese battlefield caused terrible losses, but played a major role in the Allies' victory. Our reporter Wu Guoxiu spoke to an expert on Japanese studies.
China was the first country to be invaded by a fascist state and the first to fight back. Japan invaded the northeast of China in 1931. It launched a full-scale invasion in 1937. When China began the National War of Resistance, it was up against 2/3 of Japan's land forces and much of its naval and air forces.
In a Far East theater of the World War II, Japan's army faced America, Britain, and the Netherlands. In a Pacific Ocean theater, its main enemy on the Asian continent was China.
China was battling a stronger enemy. By some estimates, 1.5 million Japanese soldiers were killed or wounded. Chinese military and civilian deaths amounted to 35 million. However, that resistance defeated the Japanese plan to take China in 3 months and further expand into the rest of Asia. It also gained time for the Allies in the European battlefield to defeat Germany and Italy.
China, with a population of 400 million and its vast territorial area, became Japan's major invasion target. It hence became the major factor that held up the Japanese military forces, allowing international forces on the side of justice to conquer fascism in the Japanese militarism.
In 1942, the Chinese army also fought in Burma, saving more than 7,000 Briton soldiers from Japanese prison camps. After Japan signed the Treaty of Surrender on September 2, 1945, 1.28 million Japanese soldiers surrendered to China, more than all its troops in the Southeast Asia and Pacific Islands. 吴国修 CCTV, Beijing.
Well, during 1930s to 1940s, a large number of Jewish refugees fled to Shanghai. To honor their history in the city, a wall of names listing each Jewish refugees have been unveiled in Shanghai. Our Xu Wenjing takes a look.
A wall of names. Sonia Mubaga was born in Shanghai 75 years ago to Jewish parents fleeing the Holocaust. She later became a teacher and settled down in Germany. But her childhood memories of the city inspired her to work with other scholars and erect this wall inscribed with the names of other survivors.
And you see it's a very fine work, and most of the names now are correct written. Most of the people are not alive anymore, so we cannot ask them what is your name like that correct or not. So we try to do our best. Most of the names are now correct written.
Sonia says she often shared her experiences in Shanghai with her students. She feels nothing but gratitude for those days. The wall is a record of all the names of Jewish refugees who were still alive in 1944. After rounds of fact-checking and corrections, the list now contains 13,732 names in total.
The idea of the list comes from the famous Schindler's List. Each name on the list represents a life if we look back. Now, each name represents a family. It means a lot to the Jewish community.
The curator said an empty space has been left in case of any changes in the future. The unveiled name list will become an important witness of the past history, and helps offer from local residents has extended to friendship between the city and the local Jewish group, and we have all good reasons to believe that the friendship will go on and on. Xu Wenjing, CCTV, Shanghai.
A short break now. Stay with us.
More smiles, more opportunities. Modern Yiwu, a pilot city of the country's international trade reform. Yiwu